The author, George R. Martin, hasn't finished The Winds of Winter yet. But there's going to be another adaptation of a prequel to A Song of Ice and Fire. Wes, how mein friend, and welcome to yet another video. Oh gosh, look at the screen, my dear friends, please. I have almost forgotten about this franchise, and yes, alas, unfortunately, A Song of Ice and Fire and everything that revolves around it, the books by George R. Martin, have become a huge franchise that, of course, started with him writing the books, but then, of course, thanks to the worldwide famous TV show over at HBO that was extremely popular among not only the readers of the books and the fantasy aficionados, but also among the wide audience. Very well known for the plots and twists, and of course for the very graphic content as far as violence or scenes of the sexual persuasion. However, George R. Martin himself has written a number of texts that serve as mainly prequels to A Song of Ice and Fire, commonly known today as Game of Thrones, although Game of Thrones is only the first novel of the Song of Ice and Fire series. Quite recently, as of making of this video, we were able to see House of the Dragon, which was an adaptation of the book Fire and Blood, and there's going to be more seasons. And now, quite recently, I would say today or yesterday as of making of this video, HBO Max, or Max as it will be known from now on, announced A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, The Hedge Knight, which is an adaptation of the stories of Dunk and Egg. For those of you who don't know, Dunk and Egg are a series, really, of novellas. Also written by George R. Martin. It was a set in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, and it also serves as a prequel to the Game of Thrones. And if I remember correctly, it set in about 90 years before the events of A Game of Thrones. And it tells the story of Sir Duncan the Tall and Egg, his squire, who would later become, King Aegon the Targaryen, or Aegon the Fifth Targaryen. And of course, for those of you who know the lore, Sir Duncan the Tall would become a famous member of the King's Guard. I have read the books. I've read them, must be a long time ago already, years and years. But the important thing here is that so far, I think 3 novellas have been published: The Hedge Knight, The Sworn Sword, and The Mystery Knight. And as you can see right there on the screen, they are going to be adapting the first one of them, The Hedge Knight, which I, once again, have to say, did enjoy quite a lot. It tells about, the meeting of those two protagonists, how they met, in what circumstances. If I remember correctly, it was before a tournament, and then the entire novella talks about a tournament. Now, I would have to reread the books to remind myself of the plot to detail, because really I can only vaguely remember what it was about. The important thing is here that I enjoyed it very much. It was quite different from A Song of Ice and Fire itself. It was more, I would say, more appropriate for the younger reader, and also more wholesome. What's an interesting fact is also that it has been adapted into a graphic novel format. So for those of you who do not particularly enjoy reading novels and books, by the way, I always recommend reading books. Just go read the books, right? It's not such a big deal. You can get the graphic novel format. But should you be interested in reading those 3 novellas, that have been published so far, they have been collected in a book called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and it indeed collects all those 3 stories. But why am I really laughing my bottom off in my mind is, do we really need another adaptation of another prequel to Game of Thrones when we know that George R. R. Martin hasn't published The Winds of Winter yet, not even talking about the 7th book? But of course, I think that the vast majority of people who, are waiting for the next installment of the Song of Ice and Fire, that we are kind of, sort of, have come to the terms with not ever seeing the saga finished. I think that A Song of Ice and Fire book 6, which is The Winds of Winter, I think that it should be released next year, or at least that is my guess. But considering the age of the writer, I am afraid I have to say that I really don't think the 7th book will ever be published. And that, of course, makes one wonder, do I really, if there were people who have never read the books and would like to start reading them, one has to think about this. Well, do I really want to start reading the books when I know basically for sure that the story is never going to be finished? Now, of course, they finished it in the TV show, and that's okay for a lot of people, and for some people it is not okay. It's famously bad. The last season is famously bad. And then, of course, there's going to be the sequel about Jon Snow. Now, as I said, and now, my dear friends, if you've been following European law for quite some time, you know that I don't really like adaptations at all. If given the chance, I always go for the source material, I always read the book, so on and so forth. And it is really not needed here to adapt other stories before George R. R. Martin finishes the main one. Well, so there you go. The only thing that remains to say is I want you, my dear friends, to tell me what you think about the entire matter. Have you read A Song of Ice and Fire? Have you read the stories of Dunk and Egg, the Hedge Knight, the Sworn Sword, and the Mystery Knight, which have been collected into A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms? Or have you read Fire and Blood? Have you seen House of the Dragon? And what did you think about it? And are you looking forward to the upcoming adaptations, like the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms or the Jon Snow sequel? Let me know in the comments down below. And that'll be all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm out of here.